something you can make with your laser engraver or wooden signs. And I'm going to show you how I make the sign blanks. Coming up. I'm Roger, welcome to the shop. What I'm going to go over here is how I make what I call sign blanks. We make quite a few wooden signs. This here is one of them, for example. Another. We have over 100 different designs. What can you get out of these? Well, get a decent craft show or exhibition. You get $15 for these, pretty easy. Simple one like this, maybe 5 or 6. And you can make them even smaller if you like. A lot of different sizes. So what do I make these out of, and what have I got into them? Well, sitting right next to me here are some what they call cedar fence pickets. These are 6 feet long. They are a nominal 5.5 inches wide. By nominal, I mean that's not exact. And thickness can range anywhere from 5/8 to 11/16. And they are rough sawn. Obviously, you want them smooth to do laser engraving on, because when you laser engrave on rough sawn cedar, it doesn't look too good. Engraving tends to spread a little bit with all the little fuzzies on it, so you want a good smooth surface. So what do one of these cost? $3.89 will get you a 6-footer, and you're going to have to do some picking through the pile because you want to make sure you get one that's not bowed, and this one here happens to be. This was just a practice piece. You want to get as few knots as possible. This does have a knot or two in it. To try to find one completely clear is be just about impossible. And then you can look at shading. You can see here there's different shades on the cedar, some of the sapwood, some of the heartwood. And it makes a nice variety when you're making your sign blanks. For example, this one here. On this side you have kind of a dark variation. On the other side it's a light variation, so you can kind of pick which side you want to engrave on. The darker ones. It's also important when you're setting this up on your engraver, you actually have the starting point where you need it to be, so it doesn't end up offset. This is what we call a second, which will probably just hang around the shop here somewhere or something like that. We wouldn't sell that because it's off center. As you look at the different shades, I'll put a couple of these side by side. This is a little bit darker shade than this one here is. So you get a nice variation, and people seem to like that, and they like to choose through and pick through about which variation they want in color. Some of them are actually quite dark. This one here, for example. So I'm going to show you how I set these up. What do I do to them to get them ready to engrave. Okay, the first thing I do is I run them through the planer. If you don't have a planer, you could also sand them. And I try to shoot for a 1/2 inch thickness. Sometimes it ends up just a hair less. But I take just a hair off each side, just enough to make them smooth. So, once I get these planed down, they are a nominal 1/2 inch, very, very close to being 1/2 inch thick. I will need to cut these to length. And this one here, as you can see, has quite a few knots in it. That could be decorative in certain situations. So I always pick a few that have tight knots. I don't want anything loose that'll go popping out and falling through. On the next one here, you see this has a knot in it. This knot will probably eventually pop out, so I'll cut around that. I cut around the imperfections, and I make different lengths here. I make anywhere from a little 6 inch The most common is a what I call 5 by 10. This is actually 5 1/4 by the time it gets sanded down. 12 inch, and then it depends on what's left on the board. So I just cut these down on the miter saw, and I'll show you how I do these little corners too. I've kind of got a little template set up right on the saw to make this quick. This is probably one of the most inexpensive ways to get material for this. And I don't do this exact. I'm not building cabinets here. So I'm going to make these 10 inches, so I'll just make a mark every 10 inches right down the line. This one's pretty clear. That's got a little bit of a spot in it there. I'll cut around that. So we'll make a short sign, make a cut here around it. Another one here, another 10 incher. Then I got a bad defect down the line there. Something to keep in mind when you're cutting cedar is don't just chop it, because you'll end up with a really ragged edge. Here you see we have a defect in this one, so I'll just cut around that. And this is one of them it depends boards. Now to cut the ears on these, I'll set this over to 45. And I actually have a mark on my saw bed because I do so many of these. So see right here I have a pencil mark. Because I've done so many of these, I just make this mark. I've got some other references for some other things we make that I use frequently. I just place the board up against it. Flip it over, take it right back to the same line. That's how I make that dog ear on the top. Okay, so we got a nice smooth surface on this side. On this side we got the dog ears cut. The edges here are still quite rough from being rough sawn. Sander. I was doing a lot of these at once right now. I'm just doing this for demonstration. I would have my dust collector set up, but it's just that simple. I can also use my Triton sander over there, which I do frequently. As you can see now, we've got smooth edges all the way around. So on to the next little step. My next step in this process is I have an 1/8 inch roundover bit on this little router table, and I route all the way around both sides. And then a couple things you can do before you do your laser engraving on them. It's a finished product here, with the exception of I do take 120 grit paper and sand both sides. Because I do engrave on the back of these, I put our business name and a little logo about Made in USA on it on the back. So I still want a smooth surface on both sides. As far as a mounting hole, I do drill a 1/4 inch hole in most of them, right up here at the top. The drill press set up over there, or a little jig. So like I say, I do these in large batches. That way I'll have all the blanks ready to go when I get an order, or if I need to make a bunch up for a show somewhere. Other than that, that's all there is to it. So what do one of these cost? Well, a 10-inch one, assuming you don't have much waste in the board, will cost you anywhere between 55 and 60 cents. So if you're selling these for anywhere from $5 to $10 for these 10-inch, $15 for the larger ones, that's a fairly decent profit. In the engraving part, I usually have 2 lasers running while I'm doing something else. So it's not like I'm just standing there watching the laser. I already have my templates pre-made. I have my origin point all preset. So I don't have to do setup on every one. I have marks on my board. I set it on the registration marks, go to the computer, hit start, and when it's done, I'll flop another one in there. That's just a little quick video here on how to make sign blanks that are inexpensive. There are other things you can make them out of, and I'll grab one of those and show you. This one is made out of 1/2-inch Baltic birch. You'll need to do a little bit of treatment to it, usually with borax solution, let it dry. There's videos around and different explanations on how to do that. Otherwise, your engraving won't be very dark. Birch does not tend to engrave very dark. One of the nice things about cedar is it does engrave nice and dark. My next thing you can use, this is cherry. Well, that's not cheap, but it does make a very beautiful laser engraving. Usually this is a cutoff piece from another sign. We do those on custom only. I don't do these on speculation because cherry is so expensive. These will cost you a whole lot more than 55 cents to make. Well, one of these costs depends on how you get your Baltic birch plywood. Sometimes you can get it in these little 2-foot squares. It's normally sold as either a 4x8 or a 5-foot by 5-foot sheet. I did find some of these at one of the home stores for I think it was about $7 for one of these 2x2s, which is kind of pricey when you're getting into what you need to get back out of that sign. So something to keep in mind. Otherwise, these cedar fence pickets are really the way to go. They're very, very popular. They're good movers, and there's a lot of things you can do with them. We'll add a little video onto the end of one of these engraving, but as long as you kind of have your act together and you have a good market for it, good thing to do. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up. Always helps the channel. Otherwise, I'm Roger in the shop making sign blanks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.